What's going on, beautiful people? This is the Perspective Chasers podcast, and I am John. On today's episode, I want to talk about the basics. And by this, I mean the basics in life. Now, again, this is only my opinion, but these days it really feels like most people are missing the basics in life. The basics on how to care for themselves all round, physically, emotionally, blah, 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 blah. And that includes myself. We ain't taught all of the mechanisms that we need to cope in life. Sometimes you have to learn some of them the hard way. And I know I've learned some of them the hard way. But everybody needs to learn them, in my opinion anyway. The basics, how to dress appropriately, how to feed yourself appropriately, how to function in society appropriately, just the basics of how to conduct yourself as a human being. I think don't get me wrong, there's plenty of this stuff we disagree on, but there's plenty of stuff that we agree on too. Nobody wants a free-for-all in society. Everybody understands that there needs to be a level of order to things, because otherwise it would just be chaos. And chaos don't seem good for anybody. So if we all have the basic tools in life to simply care for ourselves, our loved ones, and etc., hopefully it can build a better world where we don't have the level of naivety that we do, that every person can feed themselves a good meal, every person can clothe themselves appropriately, so people ain't out there freezing or this, that, or the other. Do you know what I mean? There's so many problems that we still face in the world that, we're looking to go into space, but yet most people don't have basic human rights. And I know they're two completely different aspects and they're two completely different trajectories, but it's still happening simultaneously. We still live in a world of mass poverty on the grand scale of things, and although a lot of us ain't exposed to it, there's a lot of people that don't have the basics. And then there are people that do have the basic necessities to simply survive in life, but then they don't have the basic necessities to cope with life or live a full life. For the most part, most people are scrambling and trying to claw their way through life. I think for me anyway, it's rare to meet somebody that is truly content in their life. And it does happen, don't get me wrong, and every time I do meet somebody that is content in their life, I'm more than happy for them. But I'm talking for the grand scale of things, for everybody. There's a reason why the statistics about mental health and things like that in the world are as they are, because so many people are struggling. And for a big part of life, it's covered up, that struggle's covered up or distracted by one thing or another, but that has to be addressed. There's a massive disconnect in the world where everything is compartmentalized, and it's easy to forget that everybody's running a game, but not everybody's running the same game. And for some people, their struggles are another person's dreams. And not everybody has the basics. And again, it comes in many forms. You could have the basics, i.e. you could be clothed, you could be fed, you could have a roof over your head and everything else. But then not have the basic tools in order to cope with your emotions. So then you struggle in life in that sense. There's many forms of struggle. There's many forms of skills to be learned in life. It's not one said and done. And I think all of us have a mixture of these skills. I was talking to somebody the other day and I kind of explained it as say you've got a elite skill capacity. Well, that litre can be divided up against God knows how many skills, and you accumulate that throughout your life. And some people can be incredibly book smart but have no social smarts, and some people can be the other way around. It's not to say that one will succeed in life and the other won't, but their intelligence is just different. But on one avenue, they still lack the basic fundamentals. So if we all pursue the basic fundamentals of how to conduct yourself in society, how to be a decent person, how to take care of yourself and take care of others, it's hard to fail when you've covered all the basics, because everything there should be anyway, just the up and up. If you set yourself up with the basics for any task, you should be able to succeed within the task. Take the fishing, football, whatever. Get the basic tools for it, and regardless of the level that you can perform the task to, you can perform the task. If you've got a cheap fishing rod from the corner shop or whatever else, you might be able to catch a fish. Are you going to be able to land a tuna on it? No, but you can still go fishing with it. And I think that's the kind of thing with this episode, is like seeking the basic skills in life, how to effectively communicate with people, how to effectively work with people, how to effectively bring your ideas to fruition and communicate your ideas. All of these different skills are things that we develop over time. But if you never put the attention to them, you'll never develop them. So and again, I'm not here preaching that I'm perfect and I need to develop so many skills. After the lockdowns and that, I feel like I've lost so many of our social skills because I'm used to being on my own and working on my own stuff and everything else. I prefer small crowds far more these days. I've always been more introverted. But since I was exposed to it for a long time, I'm even more so now. And I know that I suffer because of that. But again, it's something that I work on, and I try to at least get myself have a baseline of interaction with other people. Like I don't go days and days and days without talking to anybody. I always talk to somebody at least every couple of days. So I'm not shut off in that sense, but it's still only the basics of interaction. And sometimes that's enough, and honestly, sometimes it's not. Like sometimes you want deeper interaction, sometimes you don't want any interaction. But understanding at least the basics of it and the basic skills required to maintain those interactions. So to get more specific with it, I suppose, like if you can't swallow your pride sometimes and just let somebody else have the win for the sake of the relationship ain't going to last long. It's always going to be a battle of give and take. So when you're in that social scenario, sometimes even if you know somebody's story is a lie, sometimes you have to just let them run with it, because no harm, no foul. Don't get me wrong, sometimes you've got to correct them and pull them aside and say, hey, we both know what the game is here, come on. But that's not going to be all the time. And again, it's down to you to have the judgment as and when that is. But that's all that part of that learning experience. If you don't have those social interactions, you're not going to know how to behave in those social interactions. If you don't expose yourself to a situation, you'll never have the skills to deal with that situation. So to put it in another frame, I was talking to somebody about a maths problem, and they was trying to do a calculation, and I'd done it in my head in a few seconds or whatever. They asked me how. So I explained it to them, but then I said, I didn't just do that calculation, I also double checked it, worked it backwards, and made sure before saying it out loud. But sometimes I would have to write the question down so I can then visualize it back in my head and create a loop. And that's kind of my natural gift with numbers, and that will only get me so far. Don't get me wrong, I can do a few sums in my head and I can get to the answer or whatever else. But now if I was to go up against somebody that is an accountant that does numbers day in, day out, that practices constantly, my natural ability don't mean squat, because they're practicing it, and that repetition of it, that constant exposure will give them more skills with numbers than I have from just a natural gift. So even if you're naturally charismatic, take you out of social scenarios for long enough, and that natural charisma ain't necessarily going to get you as far as somebody that has been networking for the last couple of years. And that's okay, but it's about understanding at your place. And again, all of this whole podcast is about that, is kind of understanding our place in the world. And I'm interested into getting into the deeper and more philosophical sides of that in the coming weeks, where like kind of even the basics in this, like, so to kind of relate it to the pod, like there's basic topics that I wanted to cover, things that I wanted to get off my chest, and episodes that I wanted to make, blah 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 blah. But there are deeper and wackier things that I want to go into, interesting things I want to delve into. Like I say, more people that I want to talk to and get on the pod and talk to about life and their experiences, etc. But it all comes with time. But then it all starts with the basics. Again, if I didn't have the basic setup to begin with, I wouldn't then have the ability to record myself and do the pod, or get other people on to do the pod. So always try to have a broad set of basic skills. So that, again, it's kind of like that jack of all trades kind of scenario. A jack of all trades is a master of none, but still better than a master of one. Is the full thing, or something like that. Which is a nice thing, and it is true. Because if you have a broad skill set, yeah, cool, you might not be able to necessarily specialize in a specific thing, but your knowledge base will be highly transferable and it will cover a broad degree of things. So in terms of usefulness, you're going to be far more useful than a person that's just got one use. Again, it depends what the scenario is. If it's a brain surgeon, I want the master of one that is a master of brain surgery, opposed to the guy that sometimes dabbles in brain surgery. But again, it's down to your own intelligence to look to see what to take from it and what not. But yeah, like really and truly, that's the message for this episode, is try to get as many basic life skills as you can, because chances are it's only going to better your life overall. I think I'm going to end that episode here because I rambled on a bit today. The seed for this episode is going to be, find a new basics. Like, expose yourself to a new basic skill or something. Over Christmas I was going to pick up a guitar again, which I haven't played since I was a kid. But a few things got in the way of that. But something of those lines, where you can learn a basic set of skills, or something to broaden your horizons. Because hey, I can't see a downside to a broader horizon. All the best, and I'll catch you on the next one.